James Wan does an amazing job at horror in general. So, in terms of your character, can you tell us more about who you play?
I can tell you that I play a police officer. And also George Young, who is our lead actor. He's also a police detective, and I'm in the scene with him and Nicole Brianna White, who's our other female lead, who's also a police detective. And I'm just kind of there on the scene of the crime. We're all just kind of guessing at this point, but that's all I can really say. And, about the whole thing.
In terms of Malignant, why should people go and see it?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, if you're a fan of James Wan, and there's a lot of reviews out there going, and even James himself has said he's never made something like this before. And usually people hear a statement like that and they get scared. But I would tell those people, look at the history of James Wan and the movies he's made. Has he ever really steered you wrong? From the beginning, Saw, which really spawned this whole kind of torture porn era, the whole Splat Pack, Darren Bousman, and the Eli Roths of the world, that kind of spawned that subgenre of horror. And then he went back to his grassroots of like Insidious and really going back to kind of that studio horror, like indie kind of horror movie feel. And The Conjuring was really a throwback to the studio horror movies like The Exorcist and Jaws and Poltergeist. And what we're going to get with Malignant now is a throwback to you've been hearing the word giallo. So giallo was the subgenre of like Italian horror films with like the mask gloves and, and like the covered face. You don't know what's going on. And that's really what you're getting with this is James at the heart of it all. He's the master of disaster when it comes to horror, but he's also one of the biggest horror fans that you would ever, know. And what I love about James is his passion is really rooted in those classic studio horror movies that, I grew up watching. So I would just say, check it out. One, it's just good to watch something new, but also for those that are unfamiliar with the giallo kind of subgenre of horror, I think you're really in for a special treat here, and go into it and enjoy it. Don't expect the same jump scares as you would from The Conjuring or from Insidious. Don't judge it by that alone. Judge it from the story that's being told and just follow that journey because it's a really fun one.
I know you have a love of horror and you recently put out a short horror film, Repressed. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So this was an idea I also had in 2019. And I pitched it to my buddy Rio Magdaleno, who ended up being the lead in the Repressed short. And I got a lot of inspiration. The timing was good because as I was conceptualizing the idea, I was shooting Malignant. So I was getting a firsthand look at the master himself and also drawing from that inspiration of what I could put into this short film. But really it came from a place of, mental health was the biggest thing. That's why the opening scene is him talking to his therapist. And you don't know what kind of treatment he's talking about. You just know that this man's in a lot of pain. And it's based on my own experiences. I've gone through the rigors of therapy. I still go through it. And a lot of that came from my older brother, who unfortunately passed away 6 years ago, suffered from schizophrenia. And if anyone out there has never encountered somebody who's schizophrenic, it's, all the things you see in stuff like A Beautiful Mind, it is that, but it's even more heightened in real life.
If anyone wants to follow along with you in your journey, where should they head to?
Really easy. It's just at Jon Lee Brody, John with no H, just all one word. Instagram, Twitter, that's just my handle all across the board. Also follow youtube.com/Geghead. That's Gegghead. That's a channel that I founded with my best friend, who's also a horror alum, Freddie Prinze Jr. from Star Wars Rebels. And of course, I Know What You Did Last Summer, which we have a running joke that I Know What You Did Last Summer used to be considered horror, but thanks to filmmakers like James Wan, it's now considered a comedy.